I thank you all for taking out the time to attend this training. So briefly, I will discussing the housekeeping rules. Please mute your mics as you log in, and only the panelists can have the video on. So only the panelists can have the cameras on. Please take note of that. You can send in your questions during the Q&A, and when sending in your questions, please identify yourself and your organization. If you want to speak, kindly signify by raising your hands or through the chat box, and relevant materials will be made available to everyone after the webinar. Okay, so today we'll have 3 experts that would handle the training. Dr. Ruth Orji from the School of Media and Communication, Pan Atlantic University, which is part of the Lagos Business School. And then Mr. Shola Gunike, a health editor from Vanguard, with several years of experience in this space. And then Dr. Martina Agberie, who is a public health expert on this particular topic. So we'll go straight into displaying the documentary, which was done by the US Department of Justice on counterfeit pharmaceuticals. It's just a trailer, which you can view the full documentary on YouTube. The link will be shared after the training. So there goes. This is just it will give you context about what we're trying to do. All right, here goes.
Late 20, maybe 30 arrests, and not one of these boys stayed thanks to orders from above. 2 children died right here in this hospital. Your hands are soaked with the blood of the innocent. What kind of person are you?
Okay then. So we'll go straight into the training. I would like to call on Ruth Orji to Dr. Ruth.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
So we're handing over to you too.
Okay, I'll need to share my screen. So you have to stop sharing. Okay, just a moment. All right, so can you see my screen? I need some feedback. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Ruth Orji from the School of Media and Communication, Pan Atlantic University, Lagos. And this morning, I'll be taking us briefly through how you can build your brand as a reporter with respect to counterfeit reporting. I have just 20 minutes for this presentation. As you may expect, you won't get a 1 week or 1 year course in 20 minutes, but I'm going to try as much as possible to give you basics that you need to run with. So I'm going to begin by talking about what branding is. In almost every sphere of life, people appreciate the concept of branding, from different perspectives, be it advertising, marketing, strategy, logo, trust, design, value, identity. In fact, all of these components are encompassed in branding. So we want to see how exactly you can begin to build your brand and stand out in one or more of these areas, not just as an institution or not just as you represent your institution, but as you represent yourself. And I often say to people when I talk about branding that you need to brand yourself first, because every institution has a brand, okay? But you need to have your own personal branding, which of course, if you happen to leave an organization to another one, you're still moving with your brand and not that organizational brand. So what is a brand and why do you need one? I make it clear here that a brand is present when the value of what it is you're offering, or when your personality, its value, is really greater based on the perception of your audience than really what you do for them. How people perceive you, how people perceive the products you're offering, the services you're offering, is what your brand is. And it goes beyond a logo, like I say. If you, as a reporter, if you have a good brand, it increases the value that your company has, okay? If the company has a good brand as well, it makes the employees to have direction, it makes them to have motivation, it makes it possible and easy for you to get contracts, for you to get customers, because they really respect you based on what you're dishing out. And what are 4 steps you can take to building your brand as a reporter? Like I noted, we're not just talking about companies now, but you, all of you here, one by one as reporters, what can help you to have a personal brand? There are 4 steps you can actually take. First of all, you want to define how you want to be perceived. So how do you want people to see you? You are a counterfeit reporter and you want people to see you as someone who has authority in this line. So what exactly will you do to achieve that? You then want to organize your business, your reportage, whatever it is you're doing around that promise that you want to deliver to people. Also, having organized yourself with respect to what you have in mind, you want to communicate that promise. There are different ways of making this communication known. And we're going to see that as we proceed. And then you want to be consistent, because if today you say this is what you stand for, and tomorrow online people are seeing you as a different thing, then that's not being consistent. Oftentimes you hear it being said that consistency is the rule of the game, and that applies in no small measures in every aspect of endeavor. Now, what does your brand as a reporter entail? First and foremost, it means that you have to be objective in reporting, and everyone is watching. People in your space are watching, because you've communicated that this is your brand and this is what you stand for, by virtue of the kinds of write-ups that you do, by virtue of what you put out there as representing yourself. So people are listening, they're following, they're reading, and they want to know exactly how you're keeping true to the brand you're projecting. And as such, we say that you need to be objective in reporting. And objectivity means that you need to get all the sides to an issue, whether you're coming from the mainstream or from the online platform. You need to be somebody who is quite interested in being objective. And talking about counterfeit reporting, we do know that the shadowy business of counterfeits has taken over the globe to become more than a $500 billion industry. According to reports that we have, for example, Trends in Trade in Counterfeit and Pirated Goods, which is a joint report actually by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, and the European Union Intellectual Property Office, that's the EU IPO. They helped us appreciate that in 2019, the value of imported fake goods worldwide topped about $509 billion based on 2016 customs seizure data. And that's up from $461 billion in 2013, of which the latter represents 2.5% of world trade. I mean, that's an alarming figure to work with. And what does that say to you? That you really need to do, and like I would emphasize greatly in this presentation, an extensive research in order for you to be able to come up with all of the details, and that's being objective. It shouldn't be a case of piling to one side in making your reports. And so if you want to go ahead to be objective in making your reports, there are elements that you need to keep in place in order for you to say that, oh yes, I am dealing with a counterfeit. Now, there are several elements at play, and all of them must be met in order for you to say that this thing really is a counterfeit. Primarily, in order for a product to be considered a counterfeit, it has to include another party's federally registered trademark, or one that is substantially indistinguishable from another party's trademark. Okay, so where that is present, you know you're dealing with a counterfeit. And as a brand, you want to investigate and make sure that that's what it is before you label it as such. And secondly, whoever you're regarding as a counterfeiter must be knowingly and deliberately using another party's trademark without the authorization to do so. And that must, be obvious when you consider the fact that such use is almost always paired with a counterfeit intent to deceive the consumer by presenting itself as a trademark holder by way of maybe fake logo, fake tag, or what have you. And the third thing to help you achieve objectivity is that you want to realize that the trademark is being counterfeited must be federally registered, okay? And so if it is federally registered and someone else is using it in business, of course, you know that that's a counterfeit. And the fourth thing is that the goods that the counterfeiter is making or selling must be of the type that are covered by the trademark holder's registrations. And last but not the least, the use of the counterfeit trademark must be likely to cause confusion or mistake or deceive the average consumer in terms of the source of the products. And so as an objective reporter who is branded, you want to really investigate, take your time to be sure that you have all of the details in order for you to give a balanced report. And that's when you can say that you have all sides to an issue. And it's not about how talented you are. You need to really show commitment. You need to be hungry after knowledge. What happens is that a lot of times people just go copy and paste, and that doesn't help with your branding. Remember, you've said that this is who you are and who you want to be seen as. And as such, you need to be interested in honing your research skills. Do more than write about personal views, your perception of such issues. There has to be a great deal of hard work on your part. Yes, today people talk about smart work, that's true. But then if you know what writing is a lot. We know how difficult it is to write. It's not an easy profession, but then you need to be someone who is committed. And the last point there mentions the fact that you need to be a person of integrity. So for example, if you've reported wrongly, how easy is it for you to come down and apologize? And that's what helps your brand as well. So people say, oh, this person is humble and he or she makes acknowledgement for his or her shortcomings. Now, what are some of the challenges to building a reputable brand as a reporter? Now, sometimes there isn't adequate or prompt payment of salaries, and this makes some reporters resort to half-baked jobs or non-standard reportage. Sometimes, again, okay, now we've just talked about the need to be hungry after knowledge. Unfortunately, some media houses do not have good libraries that house materials that you can look up to. Then again, some reporters lack adequate and appropriate training. You know how it is that in Nigeria, sometimes some people just jump onto a profession because that's what's readily available. So you want to do more than, just sit on that platform or portfolio on which you got on board. You want to really do much more to help yourself to acquire the right skill sets. And then today, there's usually more focus on certification than on education. So many people today focus on, okay, yes, so I go online, they go online and they do a program, but really the intent is just to get certified and on really being educated on what it is that they want to learn. Then there is also the problem of greed by some media houses who are more interested in what pays them more, okay? And then this affects individual reporters' brand because they're working for these people, and so they do not have an option, as it were. They may just have to report what they're asked to report. And then some reporters might be lazy. They don't want to get out of their comfort zone in order to do some research. So these are some challenges that may be encountered. Now, some people also have interest in followership, And so when they spread counterfeit news or fake news, they know it gains them followership. But guys, this is the thing. If you say that you're an authority, you're a brand in this area, and then people find out eventually that what you're reporting is fake, I mean, you can just see what harm you're doing to yourself, right? It just is better off that you do the right thing. You gain the right kinds of followership. And then here again, I talk about press ownership and freedom of the speech of workers. We know how it is that some media houses owned by big shots try to call the shots all of the time. And as such, as a worker in such institution, it might become hard for you to have your brand, a reputable one at that. Then we have the case of the brown envelope syndrome, which sometimes is occasioned by the media institution when they don't pay their reporters well, and these ones have to resort to, accepting some sort of tips and all that in order to cover something that may not be true. And then the overarching reason or challenge to being reputable as someone of a particular brand is lack of integrity and personal character on the side of the reporter. So everything boils down to who you are, irrespective of the organization you find yourself. If you say to yourself that this is who I am and this is who I represent, you will surely do whatever it takes to maintain your integrity. And people, when they know you for it, will really look for you. And so what's the way out? I talk about focusing on research. And for this kind of writing that you do, this branding, because you've said, I'm branding myself as one who is writing based on counterfeit stories, you want to make sure that you focus on research. You want to be sure that your stories are balanced out and that you're not just writing in a hurry. Then there needs to be a shift in writing. So you want to really make people understand, make sense out of their world, because people are confused. They don't know what to believe. There's a lot of fake news out there. So how are you distinguishing yourself so people know, for example, that what you're saying is true? You want to make that shift in writing. You want to make people know that you're out there to help them. Today, again, people don't have long attention spans anymore. People actually prefer to just watch a video online and get out. They don't have time to read very long narratives. So even if you're doing the traditional stuff, kind of writing via newspapers, you want to see if you can add infographics and other kinds of things that will retain people's attention. And beyond just telling people about the stories out there, what solutions are you proposing? Okay, not personal opinions per se, but based on what's happening in the society, what solutions are you proposing? And the more people begin to see you as that person who they always get value out of the reports you make, your brand is being accelerated. And then very quickly wrapping up now, I talk about online behaviors that might diminish your credibility. So if you want to build a brand, you want to ensure that you're not attacking other people for their stories. Remember the thing of research. Find the time to do research. If you don't know how to do research, find who can teach you. Always make sure that the sites that you're quoting from are credible sources. And that's also why you need to do research. We should really go beyond, copying from other sites and just populating our own sites. I mean, that doesn't put you up as someone who should be looked up to. It doesn't help you with your reputation. Plagiarizing should be a no-no. It's a no-brainer. And when people ask you questions about your sources and research, feel free to tell them, let them know. Otherwise, you begin to shoot yourself in the foot. That brand you're trying to build is crushed. It crumbles because you're not answering the questions right. And if you make a mistake, please feel free to correct them. In fact, the thing to target is to make sure that you're not making the mistakes. Stick to the ethics of journalism, and then your credibility will be safe. And on the last two slides here, I share with you tips on building a reputable brand. So I'd like you to take your time to go through, know who you are, what you have to offer, let people know what you want to be known for. And then there are people before you who have done this, who are doing it, who have actually attained to a measure of success in what they're doing, who have built a brand that you envy. Why not reach out to such people, study their profiles on LinkedIn, and then begin to see how you can grow gradually. Whatever it is your goals are, please continue to reflect on them. Publish quality content. Once people know that your content is always top-notch, they'll look out for you, and you never can tell where you'll be sought after. Go where your audience is, educate yourself on social selling, and use testimonials to tell your story. You want people to constantly look out for you. I also talk about the need to clean your existing digital footprint. So when people Google, for example, and say, I want to know who this person is, what is it they see? So if there's anything on any website that should really run you down, you want to clean them up. Always be yourself, give away as much content as you can, build your portfolio, branch out, network, start small. All of the big shots you see today, they started somewhere. And once you're able to put all of these things together, trust me, you're coming up bigger, better, and reputable. And that's what really people would like to see. I want to believe that my time is up now, and that's what I have for you. That's what I have for you this session on building your brand as a reporter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oji. We'll go straight to Dr. Martina Aguirre's presentation. I will put it up now. Okay, so I'm going to
Well, thank you for inviting me to one of the speakers in this webinar. My own topic, is journalist knowledge of medicine and supply chain in counterfeit reporting. I have a small outline for presentation. Talk about the introduction, definition of terms, epidemiology, reasons for counterfeiting, burden of counterfeit medication, efficient supply chain, challenges of efficient supply processes, solutions and recommendations, and of course, key objectives of a journalist in healthcare, conclusion and references. My introduction, the production of counterfeit drugs is a broad and underreported problem, particularly affecting poorer countries. This is an important cause of unnecessary mortality and morbidity, and loss of public confidence in medicines and health structures. Empirical observations show that there may be more counterfeits than genuine drugs in circulation. Many factors contributing to the prevalence of counterfeit drugs in Nigeria include ineffective enforcement of existing laws, non-professionals in drug business, loose control systems, high cost of genuine drugs, greed, corruption, ignorance, illegal drug importation, chaotic drug distribution network, demand exceeding supply, against many others. Due to the complexity of the counterfeit drug problem, no single technique can eliminate the public health threat posed by counterfeit pharmaceuticals. A multidisciplinary and cross-functional approach will help combat the prevalence of counterfeit drugs in Nigeria. This is where we need journalists to combat this. Next slide, please. Talking about definition of terms. Generic pharmaceuticals, which is like the substandard drugs. Substandard medicine, products whose composition, according to the World Health Organization, and ingredients do not meet the correct scientific specifications, and which are consequently ineffective and often dangerous to the patient. Substandard products may occur as a result of negligence, human error, insufficient human and financial resources, or counterfeiting. And counterfeit medicine, according to the World Health Organization again, is part of the broader phenomenon of substandard pharmaceuticals. They are deliberately and fraudulently mislabeled with respect to identity and or source. Counterfeiting can apply to both branded and generic products, and counterfeit medicines may include products with the correct ingredients, but fake packaging with the wrong ingredients, without active ingredients, or with insufficient active ingredients. Counterfeit simply means to imitate something that is authentic with the intent to steal, destroy, or replace the original for use in illegal transactions or otherwise to deceive individuals into believing that the fake is of equal or greater value than the real thing. Let's talk about the supply chain. The pharmaceutical supply chain is a means through which prescription medicines are manufactured and delivered to patients. But the supply chain network is actually very complex, requiring a number of steps that must be taken to ensure medications are available and accessible to patients. A wide range of stakeholders are also involved in the pharmaceutical supply chain, including manufacturers, wholesale distributors, and pharmacy benefit managers. How about the epidemiology? The production of counterfeit drugs is a broad and underreported problem, particularly affecting poorer countries. It is an important cause of unnecessary mortality and morbidity, and loss of public confidence in medicines and health structures. Empirical observations show that there may be more counterfeit than genuine drugs in circulation, like I said earlier. Major factors contributing to the prevalence of counterfeit drugs in Nigeria include ineffective enforcement of existing laws, non-professionals in drug business, loose control systems, high cost of genuine drugs, greed, ignorance, corruption, illegal drug importation, chaotic drug distribution network, demand exceeding supply. I have to emphasize this because I talked about it much earlier. How about the reasons for counterfeiting? We have lenient penalty. Most people indulge in the production of counterfeit drugs because the penalty for manufacturing or distributing counterfeit drugs is very lenient. In Nigeria, such an offense attracts a punishment of 3 months to 5 years imprisonment or a fine of 500,000. Then sophistication in clandestine drug manufacture. Drug counterfeiters have taken advantage of the growing access and sophistication in printing technology and now manufacture fake drugs affixed with fake NAFDAC registration numbers. Cloning of fast-moving drugs is so perfect that even the brand owners find it difficult to differentiate between fake and original drugs. The collection of high taxes and tariffs from pharmaceutical products. This actually leads to increase in drug prices, decrease in incentives to adequate supply of drugs, and consequent scarcity of the drugs that may be exploited by the counterfeiters. Then demand exceeding supply. When the demand for a particular type of medicine exceeds the supply, criminal-minded people tend to take advantage of this by producing and distributing fake drugs as a substitute for the genuine drugs. This is actually very dangerous. Then poverty. A poverty-stricken continent as Africa is vulnerable to drug counterfeiting because it is sold on the streets at cheaper price and its proliferation as an industry. The lack of access to quality healthcare. This will create an environment for fake pharmaceuticals, hence always create the need to come to African borders and kill thousands of people and cause harm to the population. Then you have drug shortages. When there are drug shortages, those who are cartel take advantage of it to produce substandard medications. Then finally, you have ignorance. Unawareness among the stakeholders, lack of intellectual property protection, and social economic factors have also resulted in flourished market of fake drugs. Let's talk about the burden of counterfeiting. Counterfeit drugs are a worldwide concern. This organized crime has detrimental effects on public health and on pharmaceutical business across the globe. It has effects on the economy, on the company, Economic loss to the company, loss of income to the family, loss of productivity, limitation of investment of major pharmaceutical companies into medicine research and development. It has effects on the population. Toxicity, risk of consumption of harmful substances, consumption of unhygienic substances, possibility of consumption of expired products, risk of protraction of illnesses, risk of end organ damage, and of course, risk of treatment failure and death. The economic impact, it reduces revenue generation from appropriate quarters. There's poor revenue generation leading to non-development of the sector, loss of jobs if the company cannot be sustained, and of course, poor socioeconomic status. It has effects also on the healthcare. Here, people lose confidence in the healthcare system, loss of confidence in the managing physician and other providers. And of course, you have drug resistance. Talking about drug security. Drug security is defined as measures put in place to ensure that quality, safe, and efficacious medicines are produced by facilities that meet the right standards, and that the integrity of such medicines are not compromised during its distribution along the supply chain, from the manufacturers down to the consumers. There are 5 steps in the pharmaceutical supply chain to ensure that drug inventory is readily available for distribution to providers. Those 5 steps are: 1, pharmaceuticals originate in manufacturing sites, are transferred to wholesale distributors, stocked at retail, mail order, or other types of pharmacies, subject to price negotiations, and processed through quality and utilization management screens by pharmacy benefits management companies, dispensed by pharmacies, and ultimately delivered and taken to patients. An efficient supply chain processing. An efficient supply chain follows a 4-step process, including demand management, inventory management and distribution, secondary production planning and scheduling, and primary manufacturing. There are some challenges of efficient supply chain processes. This includes challenges of an efficient process. This includes lack of coordination, inventory management, asset demand information, human resource dependency, order management, and temperature control and shipment visibility. How about the solutions and recommendations? We need stronger state licensure supervision of drug suppliers will be helpful. Sorry, stronger state licensure supervision of drug suppliers will be helpful. The technological approaches, such as the radio frequency identification devices, should also be considered. So this one, you just have numbers that people can actually text, and the responses will be given if it is false or it is positive. Then the key objective of journalists. The key objective of a journalist is to gather information, write news, process and present the news in an honest and balanced manner. In addition to investigating and reporting on current events, they also work on articles and features that update and influence public opinion. Therefore, training media professionals is a helpful way to generate interest in a story, as well as improve the reach and sustainability of a program's message. Training media professionals will help them in knowing and reporting promptly and adequately if they notice a gap in the supply chain process. For instance, when they see a drug whose expiry date has passed in the public domain still being sold, it becomes a warning bell that it is not genuine. The journalist is expected to bring that to the knowledge of the regulatory agency. Again, with the background knowledge of the supply chain, it is expected that when you as a journalist see large sums of drugs being sold on the streets, by those hawking in wheelbarrows, buses, in whatever ways, you will know that the distribution chain has a problem. Because ideally, from the production up until when it gets to the consumer, there are different stages. So when a particular stage, a chain is broken at its weakest link, of course, challenges begin to unravel. Then as a journalist, what do you do? When you see the methods of storage of drugs, expired drugs still on the counter, types of medication being sold without prescription, because not all drugs are supposed to be sold without prescription. There are certain drugs that must be bought on prescription. When you see that happening, what do you do? If you are a journalist and you do your investigation, you can actually go to pharmaceuticals to go and pretend to like you want to buy a medication that is supposed to be sold with prescription. And if they sell to you without prescription, of course you know what to do. It is expected that you inform the regulatory agencies. As journalists that handle the health desk, you need to put your investigative journalism skills to use, as this will go a long way in helping to combat this scourge. Knowledge of the importance of the expiration dates of medication is vital before reporting on expired drugs. The expiration date is the final day that the manufacturer guarantees the full potency and safety of a medication. Drug expiration dates exist on most medication labels, including prescription, over-the-counter, and dietary supplements. Expired drugs have not necessarily lost their potency and efficacy. The expiration date is only an assurance that the labeled potency will last at least until that day. Ongoing research shows that stored under optimal conditions, many drugs retain 90% of their potency for at least 5 years after the labeled expiration date, and sometimes longer. Even 10 years after the expiration date, many pharmaceuticals retain a significant amount of their original potency. So in conclusion, counterfeit medicines are a global public health risk. We assess counterfeit reports involving the legitimate supply chain. Knowledge of the cycle of supply chain and demand is very important to you as a health reporter. This will help you in recognizing any disruption in the process. By disrupting the cycle of supply and demand, companies can curtail counterfeiting. And by educating consumers, companies can work to disrupt the cycle. It takes vigilance and following through with effective anti-counterfeit program. So regulatory measures to improve drug security. How do you secure it? Registration, market authorization, and expansion of quality medicines in Africa. The Nigerian pharmaceutical industry can seize the opportunity for market authorization and expansion by registering their commercially available products under the ECOWAS West African Medicines Regulation Harmonization and African Medicine Regulation and Harmonization. You can get all our references from this website. Just click on it and you see the references. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Martina. So we're going over to Mr. Shola Charles of Vanguard. He's the health editor for Vanguard with several years of experience in the health writing space. So good morning, Mr. Shola. Good
morning. Morning.
Okay. Good morning. We can hear you.
Okay. Am I audible?
So I'm showing you.
Yes. You'll need to share my presentation because I don't have access here. Is that okay?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. All protocols observed. I'd like to thank the American Business Council and Pfizer for putting this forum together. I think it's a very, very important aspect of the control process for tackling counterfeit medicines in Nigeria. I'm a journalist, and I've been involved with this professionally and personally. I've had an encounter, and I would say that my personal involvement fired my interest even more, to go beyond profession, being a professional. The next slide, I can't see the slides. I don't know if the slides are showing, but I just like to take us back. We all remember the late Professor Dora Akunyili, who was the Director General of NAFDAC several years ago, and how much she really played a role to me personally, because she had a personal involvement, and I think in that aspect, we share the passion for being against counterfeit drugs. And she made a statement that is really profound. And she said that the evil of fake and counterfeit drugs is worse than the combined scourge of malaria, HIV and AIDS, armed robbery, and illicit drugs. And that is quite instructive. Because as she said, an armed robber can probably just kill a few at a time, but counterfeit drugs can kill thousands at a go if those drugs are out there in the open. Now, my own personal involvement started about a little over 2 decades ago. A very, very close relative of mine had a complication in pregnancy. She had pregnancy-induced hypertension, preeclampsia, and she was actually placed on a particular drug, hydralazine, brand apresolene, to control the blood pressure. Initially, the blood pressure was controlled normally, but it got to a point because the drug was quite expensive, and we had to, we couldn't buy too much of that drug at a time. We had to buy an ampoule, so an injection. We had to buy an injection at a time, and that lasted about 3 or 4 days. And it got to a stage that the drug was no longer working. Her blood pressure was no longer being maintained. And the doctors couldn't understand what was happening until somebody advised that an alternative drug should be given. And even then, the alternative drug could not be found. But what really put us on the right track was that the source from which we were getting that particular drug, they ran out of their own supply. And we had to look for an alternative source. We had to get the drug from somebody else. In fact, somebody had to help us get the drug from outside Lagos. And it was then that, the control came back again. And we were able to trace the lack of response to the fact that the drug we had actually been purchasing was not really working because it was adulterated. Because I have a science background, so I have an understanding of drugs, of molecules. I did a bit of pharmaceutical chemistry, and I know that all these large molecules, they have a way in which they work, and it's either they are right or they don't work at all. And that really got me fired. I started doing some research. I started, reading all about this and all that. And it was then I really got to, know that the fake drug and counterfeit drug issue in Nigeria was quite an issue. And I had actually become personally involved. And with the involvement of NAFDAC, being a health reporter, a health journalist, I had to write about some of these things, and from a personal point of view. And the point really is that once we have a problem like this, and it does not really, until it touches us personally, we don't really have the inclination to really understand how big it is. Even though we read about, some of these things happening, if we are not touched personally, we do not really have, the reality does not really hit us. And then, it came to light again that the difficulty, because where you purchase your drugs, the source of your drugs really matters. And we find that even when you purchase your drugs, you have another problem of identifying which is real and which is fake. Because some of these counterfeiters, they have become so sophisticated that even the manufacturers of some of these drugs, they can hardly, if they are placed side by side, sometimes it's difficult to identify which is real and which is fake, except maybe an analysis, a laboratory analysis is carried out. Despite all the measures that the regulatory agencies have, put in place. So that made me really realize the regulatory agencies are really trying their best. They are working with the media, they are collaborating with the media, NAFDAC, the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, the Pharmacists Council. They are all trying as much as possible, to ensure that the media has a stake, the media's rule is well done. But the fact that we still have a chaotic distribution system, and there is unfettered access to these drugs. There was a particular occasion in which I was in a public, I was in a bus, one of these long buses, and somebody got up to advertise a drug that could treat hypertension, it could treat diabetes, it could treat, so many chronic diseases. And I listened intently to that person. Even before he finished talking, there were already people, the passengers in the bus were already asking for, the drug. They wanted to purchase the drug. But because of my own experience that I've had and my background, I knew definitely that he couldn't be for real, that the drug he was selling was not genuine, because there was no way a drug could treat hypertension and treat diabetes and treat, so many chronic diseases. So I had to speak up. I spoke up and, challenged him. Even though he said his drug was registered by NAFDAC, I got a pack of the drug. It had a NAFDAC, it had NAFDAC number, it had NAFDAC registration and all that. But even then, I said no, I was not convinced that he couldn't sell that drug in the bus, because a drug of that nature definitely will be an ethical drug. And it's not a drug, it should be a drug that should be prescription only. And from the way he was even speaking, I knew he had no knowledge about, pharmacology. He didn't understand how drugs work and all that. So there was no way he could be qualified to be selling that drug. So he was not a professional, and he was displaying the drug in a non-registered facility, and also that drug had issues. So I identified myself. I was challenged. People challenged me in the bus. I identified myself as a journalist. I brought out my ID card and said, look, I'm a journalist, I'm a health reporter, and I know what I'm talking about. That this man is misleading you, and there is no way he can sell this drug here. At the end of the day, a few people saw reason with me, and they stopped him from selling the drug. You know, we were able to arrest that situation, and I made a report. I made sure I made a report to NAFDAC. You know, NAFDAC had a list of all registered drugs and the number and all that. And even then, I was made to understand really that having a NAFDAC number, you know, a NAFDAC number does not really, it doesn't guarantee the efficacy, more or less. It only probably assures that the drug is safe, you know, is safe. And, you know, but even then, you know, there were still issues there. So this has been part of the passion, you know, that I've had, that having a very good working relationship with NAFDAC, you know, like other journalists, we're at liberty to report issues like this. And the fact that there's a lot of poverty, you know, poverty and ignorance are issues that fuel this syndrome in society. And the fact that the patient, you know, the consumer, who is the end user, is the most fragile link here, because the counterfeiter targets the consumer. You know, the fact that everybody wants cheap drugs, you know, we don't have a health-seeking behavior. Anytime, and almost everybody is a physician. You know, almost everybody prescribes drugs. You say, oh, I use this, it worked for me. You too can use it. You don't even know the source of that drug. So it's a real, very enormous public health problem. And I believe that as a journalist, you know, the fact that I have been approached by some people who have, you know, who manufacture their own drugs. And they have been approached because, you know, I'm a journalist. I work for a very reputable newspaper, and the paper has a lot of influence, and they want me to help them promote their drugs, you know, even trying to, you know, give me to compromise me. And I refuse. I say, no, there's an integrity here. You know, there's an issue of integrity here. There's a code of ethics as a journalist that I need to protect my credibility. And the fact that I know that what they are doing is wrong, so I will not be party to it, and I would rather expose, you know, such people. So what has really worked for me has been my passion, and like I said, a combination of my personal experience and, you know, as a professional, and also the fact that, you know, I have a lot of integrity. I'm not someone that gets compromised. Once I have a belief in something, I don't go back on it. And then lastly, commitment. And that is one area that, you know, I think the media still needs to be encouraged more, because the media, there is a lot that is demanded from the media. Health reporters in this country, we have so much on our table. It is really important, you know, to keep on. The earlier speaker spoke about training, continuous training of the media. I am lucky because like I said, I have a science background, so I have an understanding. I know how drugs work. I know how they interact, but not every health reporter understands that. Some people don't even really understand why, you know, fake drugs or substandard drugs or drugs that are not, you know, that are one-way compromised, why there is so much big deal about them. So training will help to improve their knowledge and their commitment, and also networking, because the war against counterfeit medicines is a war that everybody needs to be on board. The regulators, the media, the producers, NAFDAC, police, the professional pharmaceutical associations, PMG man, everybody needs to be on board. Now, lastly, before I go, I also want to touch on looking beyond Nigeria, because counterfeiting is a global issue. And even though it's really bad in Nigeria, it's a big problem in Nigeria. The fact that, we are in, if we look at sub-Saharan Africa, the countries are really dependent. One thing that happens, we have similar problems. What happens in one country is replicated in other countries. So there are regional efforts to tackle this problem. And I have been exposed to a lot of, quite a number of these regional conferences. There was a time I was privileged to be in Senegal, Dakar, to attend one of these regional conferences, and I learned a lot there because I was able to network with so many groups and companies and individuals, and we learn a lot from each other. So I think this can also be extended to the general, other media, health reporters, also to beef up their knowledge and their capacity. And also, finally, as a journalist, it would be good to be, to have a discerning mind. If we see a drug, how do you identify a counterfeit drug? How do you know that the drug is counterfeit? How do you counsel the average person, not to take that drug or to check before taking that drug? All these are skills that need to be built up, either by, oneself. Self-development is the best development, or stakeholders, NAFDAC, Pfizer, the other professional bodies can also help to do this, because all these go a long way in helping to really tackle this problem. So the take home is that we need to continue, create continuous public awareness, because this issue is really, it's a journey. It's a journey. I don't see counterfeiting, tackling counterfeiting, the counterfeit drugs as a destination. Is more like a journey. So we need to keep at it. We have to keep on every day, every time, because, like I said, the counterfeiters are getting more sophisticated. The fact that even the hard drug dealers, they're also coming into it. So there's a lot of money to be made there, and they have a lot of money to spend around. So we also need to be as sophisticated as they have been, at least from an informed point of view, to discuss the dangers and also inform society. And also the aspect of partnership and engagement. We cannot overstress that. We need to keep on partnering. Like this particular forum, it's really, really useful if we can be having this, once in a while, because engagement with stakeholders and relevant agencies, this will also help to build trust, even, within the media and society itself, so that we understand that it's a common problem and we need to tackle it. Thank you. That's all. If there are any questions, I'll take them.
Thank you very much, sir. So go straight into the Q&A. You can send in your questions in the chat box, please. Does anyone have a question you would like to ask the presenters? So from Dr. Oji to Dr. Martina and Mr. Shola. Seems no one has a question. Okay, so Yasirat has a question. Please go ahead. You have to unmute your mic. Ms. Yasira, you have to unmute your mic to speak. Okay then, Ms. Temitope, please. Mr. Temitope, please, can you go ahead?
Hello?
Okay.
Hello, good morning, all.
Good morning.
Yes,
Please go ahead.
My name is Yasira from Radio Nigeria. So sorry, I joined late. But my question is, this issue, how can we identify fake or substandard drug? I know that NAFDAC came up with an idea of when you buy, you can scratch the back, then you'll be able to there is a code there which you can send to a particular number and you get respond instantly. With that, you can confirm whether the drug you are buying is genuine or not. But recently, my brother has an issue. It was placed on a particular drug. He has high blood pressure. I myself went out to a confirmed pharmacy to get a drug. So we bought, he started using. After a while, we discovered that the blood pressure was not coming down. The result was on a standstill, and we went back to the doctor. Even the doctor could not identify whether the drug was genuine or not until I contacted a pharmacist from Lutz. So he asked me to bring all the drugs, which I took there. When the woman looked at the drug, lo and behold, it was fake. And when they brought the original, it's very difficult for us to identify whether it is the one we bought was actually fake. So if not for the professionalism involved from the part of that woman, we will continue buying the same drug and will not get results. So, and this particular drug I'm talking about has this white whatever at the back. I scratched, and when we sent the code, it said confirmed, yes. So please, how do we get to know the difference between the fake and the original? It goes beyond just send a code now, because I'm confused. Thank you.
So I would say, Dr. Martina, if you could answer the question, and Mr. Shola, based on your experience as well.
Okay. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Okay, before Dr. Martina answers, let me just say something. Yes, Yesirat, I can identify with your experience because that was exactly what I experienced too. The drug, high blood pressure, a drug that was supposed to control high blood pressure failed. Now, when I said we can identify the counterfeit medicines as a journalist or as an average consumer, we don't have what it takes. They are not equipped, to analyze the drug to know if it's the original or not. But there are so many other ways that you can, that will give one an indication that something is wrong. Although you said you bought it from a reputable pharmacy, yes, there have been incidents like that where fake drugs are purchased. in reputable pharmacies. But the fact that there is an unexpected side effect, the drug did not work, that was already an alarm bell, and that showed that something was wrong. And usually there are usually alternatives, for certain drugs, because doctors have a number of they have so many drugs, and they usually prescribe which they think is the best. If that one is not available, they can give you an alternative. So I think that is one aspect that you can use. I'm not speaking for the regulators. I'm not speaking for NAFDAC, about the scratch. That's the MAS system you are talking about. I don't know, but I did mention earlier too that even the fact that a drug has a NAFDAC number, we have had, even NAFDAC has confirmed that the NAFDAC number only guarantees efficacy sometimes. I mean, it guarantees the fact that the drug is not lethal, that it has been tested by NAFDAC and all that. But it does not, the NAFDAC number does not really guarantee that that drug is efficacious, because other things need to be considered, like the expiry date and storage conditions and so many other things. So that's all I just need to say. But as an average individual, it's not too out of place, to do a bit of literature survey. I mean, read up about certain drugs. If you are prescribed a particular drug, you can always go online. There is a lot of information about any drug. It's there. And the manufacturer, because there are brands. Most of these drugs are brands. They only have active ingredients. So if there's a particular brand that you have bought, you go online, you will get the specific details from the manufacturer of that drug. And once there is anything different and you're not getting the desired results, I mean, that should give you the alarm bell. So the fact is that as an average person, we are not equipped. There's a limit to what we can, apart from the visual. I did say it in my presentation that some of these substandard drugs now are so cleverly packaged that even the manufacturer will be hard pressed to identify which is real and which is not real, until that drug is actually used. So that might be beyond the capability of the average person to decipher, and you will need an expert view on that. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. In addition to what, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. In addition to what Shola talked about, it's unfortunate now that we're having this kind of situation. It's difficult actually for individuals, just the common man, to be able to identify the fake drug from the genuine one, from one that is authentic. Even people that are learned find it difficult to separate the authentic one from the fake ones. Regulatory agencies also find it difficult, except they do the real thing. They take it to the laboratory to do the composition and check and everything. So, but now we will find drugs that are not so expensive, even being faked. So the marketeers don't care whether if the drug is an expensive one or a cheap one. They now fake any of them, cheap or expensive, they fake them. So, but what do? When you have adverse effects, we are not supposed to wait for adverse effects. Under normal circumstances, you take your drug because you know it's supposed to work for you. But when you have adverse reaction, you must report it. You must report it. And if you report such a thing, they will take it up. If it's the one that is not common, because in the literature they will tell you these are the things that are expected, but if it is getting too much, then the regulatory agencies will take it up. Then what else are we supposed to do? In medicine, you treat underlying pathology. Why do we have fake drugs? You treat the underlying pathology. I talked about the chain, the supply chain, from point of production up until when you sell to the consumer. If there is a chain, if there is a break in that supply chain is bound to have a challenge because they will be able to fake it from that place. So you must be able to have a good thing in place, regulation in place, and ensure that the people are brought to book. The culprits are brought to book. So for people to identify is a bit difficult, but it is good to go to a very, very good pharmaceutical company or a shop to buy your medication, not buying from quacks. Buying from quacks is a no-no. Buying from people that retail that move along the road, the wheelbarrow is a no-no. So go to a very good place. If you go there and it is fake, you can go back and report. Such a thing will help. I can tell you something that happened some days ago. I bought a drink, opened the drink, poured it in the glass. Believe you me, the things I saw inside, meanwhile it had not expired. Had not expired. I took it back to the shop. And when I got there, I told them, my bringing it back is not because I wanted a new one. It's because I needed to report this thing. And I was so impressed. You know what the owner said? She took the product, went to the fridge, collected another one, looked at the date of production, and took a similar one and opened to be sure that it is not the same thing. So that if it's the same thing, of course she will take it out immediately. So these are the kind of things we do. So if you have a challenge, it's always good to report it. So as journalists, we need to create sensitization around this thing. The more people know about it, the better. The more people know about it, the better. So it is our call. I'm a medical personnel working in a media outfit. So I'm able to go out of my way. When I see this thing, I say, no, this medication is not right. When I prescribe and they bring it back, I look at it and say, well, okay, this is not nice. So that is actually it. It's a bit difficult for people to identify on site looking at it. But when you have reactions, you report. There's not left for the regulatory organizations to follow through. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Martinez. So, Temitope of Farmer News, you have a question. So unmute your mic and ask your question.
Okay, good afternoon. Yeah, my question is on distribution chain challenge. Yeah, she did mention it while she was Dr. Martin. Dr. Martina mentioned it while she was presenting actually. Is a challenge along in our society today, is a major issue. In that, as a journalist, you have done a story on different stories on distribution challenge in distribution chain challenge in our society. And you still see people selling in the market, open market, selling on the street, and they are still selling this product. So how do you verify if they are authentic products, and how do you prevent people from buying from them? Like the example Mr. Shola cited, he saw a man marketing a drug that is claiming to cure several diseases, and he had to stop. But this one in the open market, the problem is still existing. So as a journalist, what can we do to help this situation? Thank you.
Dr. Martinez, the question is to you.
Yes, she's asking what can be done to forestall the situation as a journalist. Okay, if we journalists know the distribution chain the way I presented it, for instance, if you have a challenge like what Shola did, you'll be able to talk about it. If, for instance, you see somebody in an area where you are not supposed to see some very expensive medication, you find out that in that local community, you are seeing very expensive drugs being sold in that very small community when the pharmacy can't even afford some things there. It calls for question, because some of those medications you'll be seeing there are fake. some of them will be fake, because somebody who is going to sell a medication that is costing like 10,000 naira per packet and having the quantity so much in that small community, it's just you can decide to even buy one and take it to the lab, or you call the regulatory authorities to come and look at it. But for you, who is also a journalist, we need to have protection too for journalists. The way if Shola did not stand his ground that day as a journalist in talking about it, because he already had knowledge about it, nobody will listen to him. So if we as health journalists know our onion, that this is how it's supposed to be, wherever you are, you can stand and talk about it. Do not keep quiet. Report. The more we do sensitization, the more we talk about it, the more people know about it. And when remember when this crash thing first came out, many people started using it. At that initial stage, it was very good until they started faking it again. So what do you do as a journalist? When you notice such a thing, you report to the regulatory authorities, and you should also be protected. You move with your ID card, and when you're asked a question, you show your ID card that you're a journalist, and this is what happens, this is what happens, this is what happens. So it is everybody's duty, not only for the journalists, it's for everyone. Everybody's supposed to be involved. So that is basically it. There is nothing you can do apart from reporting it as and when due. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Margaret Lily wants to share a comment on this.
Yeah, thank you. Overall, it's just what I do, my own experience around this. When I go to a pharmacy, the first question I ask is, they may not give me the actual answer. Where do you get your medicine from? I always ask that question, and usually I like going to chain pharmacies, or pharmacy chains. So I ask them where they get. Do you have the company itself supply you, or who are the wholesalers? Again, because of my background, having worked in a pharmaceutical company, so I have a sense of the distributors, the wholesalers, and all that. So the answer they give me will give me a sense of whether I should really go ahead to buy this medicine or not. In the estate I stay, there are 2 pharmacies that are there. That's inside the estate. I usually would not buy from one, again because of the disposition of the pharmacist. Sometimes when a pharmacist becomes a doctor, becomes everything, can tell you how, you get curious. So sometimes it's your internal, sometimes your 6th sense or 7th sense, depending on, Recently, I needed to buy medication for my mom, and that was during the height of this, the close down and the curfew and all. And I just said to myself, let me just go to the clinic there and tell them, look, she's a registered patient. Her medication just finished. I showed them her prescription, and I got the medication. So it is about asking more questions. It's about really probing to know exactly how to get out of it. This is really answering Yasirat on the experience she had, and she said it's a reputable pharmacist or pharmacy. Question is, where do they get their medicine? This going back again to the supply chain issue that Dr. Martina mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So,
can I just add to?
Okay.
Yeah,
go ahead.
To Temitope's question, as a journalist, because I'm a journalist too. What she mentioned about the distribution system, we all know that the distribution system, it has been chaotic, and to a large extent, it's still chaotic. Even though there have been efforts to arrest it, to close down some of the open drug markets, the major ones and all that. But we all know what happens. We all know that, much of the effort has not really changed, the status quo. So as journalists, what we need to be doing is just keep on reporting the gaps. We have to keep on drawing attention to the gaps, that these drug markets, there is still uncontrolled access to drugs that are, prescription drugs. Like Maggie said, some of these drugs are called orphan drugs, drugs that should not be seen in the open. If we see them, I mean, it's really, really an emergency, and we need to keep on drawing attention to it. So that is just basically what I think it is. I mean, there's no two ways about it. We just have to keep reporting that there are gaps, and until those gaps are plugged, I mean, the chaos will remain. So I mean, as a journalist, I think that's all we just have to keep doing. And where there are improvements, we also report the improvements and the fact that we've moved on.
Okay, thank you. So I'll call on Mr. Martins. You have a question. Let's go ahead.
Okay, still on the drug distribution channel. The first speaker talked about.
Sorry, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
The first speaker mentioned something about the distribution channel. The distribution channel is difficult. Can she please throw more light on how this will be able to curb counterfeit drugs in Nigeria?
Okay, please, can you send your question in the chat box because your audio is not quite clear?
Okay.
So, Mr. Mark Isibo for leadership, please go ahead. You have to unmute your mic.
Hello, Joseph, can you hear me now?
Yes, you can hear you.
All right, thank you very much. Mine is actually a statement, a comment. Let me just say that I appreciate the remarks by Mr. Shola that as journalists we should draw the awareness of the existence of counterfeit drugs and how we can create awareness. But I want us to also point to the fact that it is actually difficult for a journalist to know what and how to identify counterfeit drugs. And since it is difficult, it becomes very, very difficult for a journalist to actually play a big role without the support of the key agents. The key agents like the customs and the NAFDAC and the SON, Standard Organization of Nigeria. Because what we are majorly talking about is standardization. If we have a standardization, a regulatory authority that is actually doing its bit, doing what is supposed to be, meeting up to the standard, ensuring that those substandard goods don't easily find their ways into the market or into the society, then it will be a work have done. And then also working with them in a way that they come out to tell the journalists, these are our challenges. This is how it is good the American Business Council is doing this. This is one of the many things that can be done to help the journalists to sanitize the system. So the customs, the NAFDAC, and the SON also need to come out to tell us what their challenges are because they are at the point of identifying them more. You know how difficult it is, Joseph, for anybody, for any journalist to come out and say, okay, I want to pick a drug, I want to analyze it, I want to take it to the lab, I want to come out with a report on it to actually show that this drug is fake. You understand? You know what I mean? So it is quite expensive and it's quite difficult. Since we are not medical doctors or health experts. So for me, I think this kind of capacity building or stakeholder meeting should be extended to those key stakeholders as NAFDAC and SON and customs to be able to expand it and to make it easy for Nigerians to know, to be aware of the existence, but to be able to deal with the situation. That's just my little.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your comment. Mr. Martins, Mr. Martins Ifija, his question is, how will proper drug distribution channel curb counterfeit medicine in Nigeria? So I think the question is directed to Dr. Martina and Mr. Shola.
Say how would stand the? Can you repeat that question again? How will?
So how will proper drug distribution channels curb counterfeit medicine in Nigeria?
Awesome. If the chain is good, if there is no weak link there, from the time of production, getting the products, going through the process of manufacturing your drug, everyone who is involved there is a gatekeeper. At any stage, at every point, there is a gatekeeper. So if there is a challenge at a particular place, if there is a gap in a particular chain, we know it is between, okay, for instance, you're taking from A, B, and C. Taking from A to B, there's no gap, there's no problem, you are fine. Then if from B to C, you now have a challenge, the people from B to C will be held accountable. They'll be held accountable. If it's at the point of production where you now have it being adulterated, then you know that it's from the source that you hold. But if you have done your production and you are very well, it is okay. You have left that stage and it gets to where you are not supposed to give to the not even just before the end user, and it becomes expired. When it is expired,
Dr. Martina, are you still on the call?
calling it that okay, it is mine, we have to make this thing work. So that is actually it. Everybody taking responsibility from A on the chain, ensure that it works. For regulatory bodies, ensure that they are well funded. Ensure that they are well funded to do their job at every point in time to do their job. Even the workers, those that your employees, ensure that you give them the right things, what they need to do their job. Because if you we're talking about journalists now, you let the journalists also know about the chain, how it runs, so that at any point when they see, they'll be able to identify that, okay, this is where this challenge is coming from now. It is not from the source of production. It is not from source of production. You have somebody who is selling a wheelbarrow, drugs that shouldn't even be there. How did it come out? Imagine what is going on in our own country. People are selling drugs, they're hawking drugs, and we have regulatory bodies walking about looking at them. Drugs that shouldn't even be, you can't even buy from the pharmacy without prescription. They are selling it in public, and you have regulatory bodies watching them. So what are you doing as a journalist? And what are the regulatory bodies also doing? You as a journalist, you have not been able to even report that this is what is going on. You have taken even some shots to confirm what you are seeing. Regulatory body is there, not doing anything. So it's all our duties. We are all involved in this chain. It is not only the manufacturer, everyone is involved in the chain of ensuring that it is not broken and we have the right products at the end of the day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, so Ms. Lily has views on this.
Hello. Thank you. Sorry, it looks like I'm talking a bit too much, but it is an area of real passion. Obviously, straddling between media and the healthcare space. I know that at some point the government had talked about a policy on kind of formalizing the distribution chain, which is having what you call the mega drug distribution centers, the state drug distribution centers that would now supply to wholesalers and then supply to eventually pharmacies and all that to kind of streamline and protect the distribution chain. I really don't know what has happened to that. They kept talking about the implementation, and I know a couple of companies that have invested in setting up bigger systems just to register as MDDCs. And I know that some of the state medical centers actually upgraded, which really was good, so as to meet the status of the SDDC. So again, as a journalist, these are questions we should be asking. What happened to that policy? What's going on? Why is it being implemented? What is forestalling it? And a couple of other things that we really should be asking ourselves at this point.
All right. Hello. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
I can hear you.
Yes. I just wanted, Martins, thank you for the question. That actually is a very, it's a question that kind of wraps up the essence of this webinar. Because I was asking, why all this? We said it earlier. I believe Dr. Martina mentioned it. I also mentioned it, that we have a chaotic drug distribution system in Nigeria, and everybody knows that. And the reason is that, it's only in Nigeria. I don't know, maybe in other countries, maybe in Africa, I'm not really aware, where drugs are sold in the open market, like, other commodities. That is not the universal standard. There's a universal standard about pharmaceutical, medicines and drugs. They are not to be, because drugs, there are two, that's why we have the Pharmaceutical Society and the Pharmacists Council. Because whoever is going to handle any medicine must be trained. That person must be a professional. So the Pharmacists Council, or I think it's the Pharmaceutical Society, or both of them, they regulate both the professional and the drug must not only be sold or handled by professional, it must also be displayed only in a registered premises. And only, in a regulated system can that happen. And this also helps in tracking. I will use an example here. If you have a car, we've heard about recalls. We've heard about manufacturers, making recalls for their cars. Every car has got what is called a VIN number. That's it's a special number that is unique to that vehicle. And that no matter where that vehicle is, on this planet, it can be tracked. And it can be recalled, and, so many things can be done regarding that number. It's the same thing with drugs. If we follow the regulated distribution system, if there is a problem with a particular drug, that drug can be traced back, through the distribution channel, through the supplier, back to the manufacturer. And a chaotic drug system does not allow that. Because when you just buy from the open market, once you buy it, you're on your own. Even if you have any issues, you cannot hold anybody responsible. You don't even many of these drugs, even though they have manufacturers' addresses, those addresses are usually fake. You can't trace them. So those are some of the reasons why, like Margaret said, the professionals have been crying like almost forever that even though government 2 years has said that they are going to formalize and regulate the system, but for one reason or the other, we keep going back and forth on that. And until that is achieved, really, the issue of counterfeit and substandard drugs will always be an issue, because once these drugs are in the market, it's virtually impossible or next to impossible, to recall. You can't recall a fake drug. All that NAFDAC has been trying to do is just, go about and seizing them and then destroying them. But those are the ones that, can be seen. So having a proper distribution channel helps in the tracking of these drugs, and also, to find out what effects, maybe there are any interactions, any, pharmaco, interactions, and also whether there are maybe there needs for being improved. It also helps in the research, those in the research and development. It also helps too. So Nigeria cannot be an island to itself. We have to join the whole world, in this process. And I think that is one of the roles that the media too can also play. If we can help, keep on calling attention to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think we're going straight. We're already past time. We're supposed to close at 1:30. So I'll call on Mrs. Chioma Obina to do the closing remarks for us. She is the president of the Health Writers Association of Nigeria. Mrs. Obina. Hello. Can she hear us?
Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me, yeah.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, it has been an engaging one since the last 1 hour that I joined the program. My job here is simply to say thank you to everyone that participated in this webinar. But before I do that, I would like to thank the God Almighty for preserving our lives to see this day. Because the event of last week and the country was a harrowing experience for every Nigerian across the world. So many people lost their lives, but we are alive to see this day and to participate in this program. We also pray for the families that lost their loved ones in the unfortunate incidents. May the souls of the departed rest in perfect peace. Now, before I go on, I would like to introduce HEWAN, Health Writers Association of Nigeria, to you. HEWAN is a group of over 40 health reporters, editors, correspondents, bloggers, selected bloggers, and other online journalists. HEWAN has existed for over 12 years, and we have partnered with several corporate organizations and government agencies, including Pfizer. The topic of today's training, capacity building for media on counterfeit reporting, is in line with our vision and mission designed to push issues in health that will bring about better health system in the country. Counterfeiting is a major public health problem today in Nigeria. We thank the organizers of this program, and we are glad that we all participated. On behalf of my colleagues, I say thank you to the organizers. I say thank you to Pfizer and American Business Council. I also thank our able facilitators, Mr. Shola Ogundikwe, who is also my editor in the office, and also a very senior colleague in the bit. I also thank my colleagues for participating, because I know there are so many programs today. Some of them were able to participate. I know that some of them are also switching over to other programs that are ongoing as we speak. So I thank, but I also encourage my colleagues to also make good use of the training. It's not just about spending an hour or two on a program without making good use of it. I encourage all of us to put it in our daily reporting, not only on counterfeiting, but in other health-related issues. I thank everyone for participating. I am sorry for taking a little of your time. Thank you for participating, and God bless everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I think we'll come to the closing. So just for your notice, we'll be sending the certificates to your respective places the coming week. And also, the presentations, the summary notes, and everything will be shared as well. Thanks to everyone. Have a great day. Have a great week as well. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.